Back again with Mum. As you can see, she's got her fleece on. So it's getting a little bit colder now. The hot summer is over in London at last. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to turn you there. Just turned my mum. Anyway, I'm Dr. David Coe. I'm the author of Thriving at Nature's Pace. It's a book about a new approach to climate change. And I'm reading with my mum, Eleanor. And we started earlier at the beginning of the year. So we're almost finished. And I'm hoping to finish it over the next few days. So what do we have? We just have maybe tomorrow morning. Oh, actually, I don't know if I can get here in time because I've got an appointment at 9:30. So maybe a bit after that, if I can. And then I'm going to be away on holiday. So we'll carry on when I come back, so early September, and then we'll definitely finish it by then. Definitely hope so. But anyway, we've been talking about transformational ownership, which is a way of thinking about oil and gas and coal companies in the way that we change the ownership completely. We basically buy them out, so that they become owned by everybody in the world, rather than just by the pensions and the people who look to invest in assets as such. And when we do that, we can actually have the right to say what they produce. And the idea is they produce what are called Thrive contracts, which are contracts on the oil and gas and coal while they're still in the ground, 1 barrel at a time. And the price for those would be much cheaper than they would be if you were to buy a barrel of oil after you've taken them up, because you obviously don't need the price of taking them up. And then those who want to take them out can then go ahead and do that by buying those contracts and paying for the cost of taking them out. And those who don't want to do that can offer them back to nature in exchange for a new currency called Thrive coins. And the Thrive coins can be used as money between us for all the things that we want. It will be like a currency denoting a solidarity of people together to thrive at nature's pace. Hence the book, Thriving at Nature's Pace. And that's the basic structure that we can do with that. And of course, we can do it without having to buy out the companies, but that's just an idea that we can do, because we can go directly to the governments who own these things and these oil and gas and coal that's in the ground, and they want to sell them. So, we can partner with them and says, well, we can do our projects together. You chip in the oil and gas and coal. We get the ownership of that. We can then decide whether we want to turn that into Thrive coins or not. And the same thing can continue in that way. So we step in where the existing oil, gas and coal companies would be doing in that way. So if we are to buy them out, what is the right price for the oil, gas and coal companies? That's what this section is about. It's quite long. And so, yeah, but maybe I'll finish it because the last bit is about antitrust and stuff. So maybe we'll try and finish the whole chapter today. So the price offered to the shareholders for transformational ownership, this is the shareholders of the oil and gas and coal company, the existing ones, has to be a fair price. Otherwise, the economics become coercion, and that's wrong. An agreement made by coercing one or the other party will not hold. Transformational ownership has to be a genuine choice. Then what is a fair price? The oil, gas and coal companies' own projections are that oil and gas and coal will continue to increase. OPEC is a group of oil exporting countries. It controls 60% of oil exports. Its forecast is that the demand for oil and gas will continue as the developing world's population increases and drives economic growth. They see, for example, the number of diesel and petrol-powered cars increasing even as the number of electric cars increases. Similarly, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, estimates global oil and gas demand will keep rising. Its model considers two scenarios, a world with a low growth and a world with high growth. In the low growth scenario, oil and gas use will continue. Coal use will flatten initially, but slowly turn back to increasing by mid-century. That's basically 25 years from now. A high growth scenario shows the use of all three fuels increasing. This is with renewable energies also increasing at a fast pace. As an example to corroborate these forecasts, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh will be major contributors to world growth. Their populations are educated and together they make up a quarter of the world's total, and all with median ages in their 20s. They are extremely exposed to adverse impacts from climate change. There are also countries pushing hard to close their development gaps. This gap is measured frequently as the difference in the GDP per capita of the developing nations to the GDP per capita of the developed nations. Their current GDP per capita is 1/6 of that of China, and China's is about 1/7 of that of the US. This means a quarter of the world's population, who are still largely in their 20s, will grow economically over 40 times before they catch up with the US. India is making record investments in coal power. This is happening in conjunction with making record investments in renewable energy. Its energy ministry has pointed at air conditioning to combat the extreme heat as one of the reasons for driving up the country's need to keep expanding coal. With worsening climate change, this demand for air conditioning can only get worse. In Bangladesh, coal is overtaking natural gas as the fuel to provide power to its businesses. For the same amount of energy produced, coal delivers twice as much greenhouse gas emissions as natural gas. But for the same amount of energy, it is cheaper. So coal use overtaking natural gas is bad for climate change. The country is the world's largest clothing producer and exporter. Global demand for clothes is driving Bangladeshi energy demand. This demand is being met by expanding a fuel that's the worst for climate change among the triplet of oil, gas, and coal. Pakistan recently discovered a significant oil and gas deposit that could amount to one of the largest in the world. The country has very high debt servicing costs with a substantial primary deficit. That is, the government spends more than it receives even before considering the cost of paying interest on its debts. It's looking to monetize this oil and gas discovery to help support its budget. Each of these three countries has very different reasons for continuing to produce and use oil, gas, and coal, and it's because there is such a variety of reasons that the oil, gas, and coal industries are confident about rising demand. On the other hand, the price of the oil, gas, and coal companies also has to reflect the cost of their business. Realistic cost scenarios are necessary. Oil, gas, and coal use may increase and the revenues to the company may increase, but if the cost of production also increases, then the revenues can be swallowed up, leaving little or no profits for the shareholders. This will lower the price of the company. The biggest future cost capping the profits of the industry will be windfall taxes. Governments no longer have any qualms about raising large windfall taxes on the profits of oil, gas, and coal companies. This means it will impact the companies no matter where they relocate. Every government is running out of money. The bumper years of the industry are gone. The dam on windfall tax was broken when electors rebelled against the rising cost of energy. Governments in 2022 and 2023 introduced windfall taxes following this. This pattern will continue. The general public feels strongly against energy companies making large profits on the back of their own cost of living expenses. The connection between oil, gas, and coal and climate change will also not be forgotten. Though oil, gas, and coal companies may be free to operate, one way or another, their link to driving climate change will limit the profitability of their shareholders. This will reflect how much these companies are worth. The most obvious way the cost will come is through direct litigation costs. Lawsuits are increasing and they are becoming smarter. This will continue. The chances are that the companies will be found guilty of something. They will appeal, which will be costly, and then there will still be more lawsuits coming. Even if that does not happen, the cost of fighting all the cases will keep going up. Lawyers and expert witnesses are not going to lower their fees. This again dampens the upside for the shareholders. Capital expenditure is also a drag. Oil, gas, and coal businesses cannot deliver the promised future without spending large amounts of money. Existing fields are running out. New fields will have to be opened. They are increasingly in more difficult places to extract. This is for the simple reason that the low-hanging fruits of where oil and gas and coal are easy to extract have been exhausted. The industry now has to extract from sites that are more expensive to operate. This will cost them. If they don't, then the investment horizon will shrink and the value of the company will drop. If they do, then the cost increases and the value may also drop. This means the cost of production has to rely on improving technology to keep it down. This can happen to some degree, but the investments to do this relies on everyone believing in the long-term future for oil and gas and coal. Most people actually don't believe in this. Most of those who do believe in the long-term future of oil do so somewhat begrudgingly. That makes it harder to draw the line in the talents to improve the technology. Again, to draw in the talents to improve the technology. Again, this will hurt the price for the oil and gas and coal companies. The business can also rely on government subsidies. Older subsidies are gradually being phased out, but newer subsidies to support decarbonization are increasing. These subsidies reduce their production costs, and in fact, governments are paying the industry to produce oil and gas with carbon capture credits. These subsidies are likely a transient benefit. Governments cannot afford to maintain them on a permanent basis. It is a matter of the balance of policy, and at the current moment, the tendency is to stop supporting oil, gas, and coal. This would eventually hurt the price of the companies, but for the moment, it's probably a wash. OPEC itself estimates that $17 trillion of capital expenditure will be necessary in the coming decades. Global financial institutions are pulling away from financing new projects in support of bringing about an end to the reign of oil and gas and coal. This support is a reflection of the worsening climate change will cost the financial institutions' own businesses more. The oil, gas, and coal companies will have to commit more revenues from their own income, and this will reduce the payouts to shareholders. Again, what matters is how much shareholders get. Even though oil, gas, and coal production may continue for a long time, and the revenues to the companies increase, the profits to shareholders can still drop. The biggest risk to the shareholders is ironically climate change itself. Economic recession is the worst thing that can happen to oil, gas, and coal industry. In a recession, growth slows, activities drop, and energy demand collapses. In these times, oil, gas, and coal companies risk losing money. As climate change progresses, the world will likely find itself in a prolonged stagflation. That is, the cost will go up and growth will stagnate. In this situation, business confidence will be low and people will not have the money to spend. The value of the oil, gas, and coal companies will drop. The estimates of the price have to take into account the growth and cost in some detail. Fortunately, oil, gas, and coal companies are widely analyzed by people in the investment community. The talents needed are there, as are the growth and cost models. There's also the timing to consider. Bit too early when the future looks rosy and the price will be high. Bit too late when climate change has progressed too far. Then even though the price may be lower, the real value of transforming the companies to produce Thrive contracts may be lost. Equally, the shareholders of the oil, gas, and coal companies need to decide if it's better to be the first or the last to sell. The company that sells when Thrive contracts are already widely accepted will find that it has no more room to maneuver. It may have to accept whatever price is offered. That makes the timing from its side equally a bet on climate change. Then again, owning oil, gas, and coal companies a bet on climate change. Ultimately, the price is what the buyer will pay and what the seller will accept. Here, major investors such as sovereign wealth funds, pensions, and investment institutions have a direct role. They are the anchors to the financial markets. They ultimately determine the price of companies. They're both the buyers and the sellers, and because of this, it is also their role to set the right price. What about competition and antitrust laws? Antitrust laws come about in response to companies colluding to control a market. The intention of the antitrust laws is to ensure that companies cannot act collectively to strip consumers of choice. These laws originated in response to the oil industry. It started when John Davison Rockefeller, who founded Standard Oil, brought his oil companies under one umbrella into a market-controlling trust. That's how the laws got the name antitrust. At the time, each state in the US had different regulations and taxation rules. This complicated the ability to operate the whole Standard Oil business across the different states. To make life simpler, he set up Standard Oil Trust and put the shares of each of the Standard Oil regional companies in it. This created single central control. It became more than just control over its companies, it became control of the whole oil market. The practice was copied and became a way for shareholders of a small number of companies to club together to control the whole industry. Antitrust laws were then enacted to prevent trusts from being misused in this way. They ensure consumer choice cannot be held hostage to a small group of investors. That said, the oil, gas, and gas industry has always had a strong controlling group. Back in the 1920s to 1970s, this was the Seven Sisters. These were 7 European and American oil and gas companies that started the industry. They were so powerful that reputedly, even governments had to check their policies with them for approval first. Then OPEC came along. This is a group of largely Middle Eastern oil exporting countries. It formed to oppose the economic colonialism of the Seven Sisters. It operates still at the government level to set production levels and target prices. It is itself above antitrust laws. Transformational ownership does not create antitrust issues. The transformed companies are Thrive contract companies. It is people who determine the demand for oil and gas and coal. They determine how much to keep in the ground and how much to use. This sets the price for the Thrive contracts. Production is determined by real demand through Thrive contracts. The transformed companies operate independently and under separate management. They each manage the Thrive contracts to their own oil, gas, and coal reserves. The owner is the global citizenry. This is broader and more diverse than the current group of investors. The economics is freer. There is democratization of economic choice. Ultimately, the issue is whether oil and gas and coal should be used for investments. The real issue is how to treat companies that create global harm. The current missing choice in this respect is the choice to keep oil and gas and coal in the ground. This is a point that the current anti-competition laws do not address, and the UNFCCC does not want to address. Transformational ownership resolves this by giving this choice to people. So, Mum, that was the end of that chapter. We've only got the conclusion left. We can do that next time. What do you think?
咁如果你淨係貼住喺嗰度，咁你冇得攞出嚟用啊？
係咯。So Mom is asking, we keep it in the ground, that means we can't take it out to use, which is exactly it. So this is the difficult choice, because it will mean we will have to do without something.
咁而家越嚟越熱，咁點搞啊？
Then what about as it gets hotter and hotter, what should we do? Well, the problem is if we keep using it, then it's going to keep getting hotter and not stop at all. But while it's hotter, there are other things that we might be able to do. We can change the way in which we shade our buildings, the way we actually think about the energy that we have and what priority we give to our energy that we have. And at the same time, we're also finding other ways to create the energy we need. So between a combination of staying cool, which doesn't necessarily need energy, like mum sleeps on a mat, on a straw mat. And I used to do that when I was younger, and I bought a cheap one to try again on. And it makes a big difference at night. And the big problem is that you want to use the energy to keep yourself cool now, but that makes it impossible to keep cool going forward, because it will keep it hotter and hotter. And so it becomes a race where we're constantly chasing from behind.
因為嗰啲人越嚟越多人用冷氣，咪越多啲 energy。
Which is right. So Mum's saying if there are more and more people using air conditioning, well, we need more and more energy. So we also need to start thinking about what we can do. So for example, my mum doesn't have air conditioning here, but I'm sure her neighbors have. And so it's not necessarily the case that we have to use air conditioning. And in fact, air conditioning often is used in a really ineffective way. That doesn't help. My neighbor has an air conditioning unit that's basically on all the time, even when it's not needed. So there's a balance between how we live as our world is changing around us. And that goes back to this book's title, Thriving at Nature's Pace. We try to force it to be our pace, but nature itself gives hints about how we can manage that in a different way. But we have to be humble to nature. We can't think we try to control nature on everything. Then eventually, as it's proving now, nature is proving a little bit stronger. So the typhoons in China that displace all sorts of people is causing all kinds of landslides. The drought we've had here in the UK, that's making the water scarce along. It's not just the heat. All of these things means that we have to really think about who's really the boss. Whether we are bigger than nature and whether we can actually manage that, And of course, the earthquakes, they're also linked along as well. More evidence now coming that actually the increasing earthquakes are increasing, and it is connected with climate change in that way. So all of these things are coupled. And of course, I think what we're facing most is a crisis of livelihoods, because costs are increasing, harder for businesses to function, and then jobs will be gone. So all of those things are somehow part of this thing of that we have to consider, which is more than just, do we just have an air conditioning? And if we don't want to keep it in the ground and keep it on, we can do that, but make it our choice rather than it just happens. That's the idea of thriving at nature's pace. So, and final concluding chapter, we'll probably go through that. Good question, Mum. So bye everyone. Take care. God bless.
Bye.
So bye. Okay, so that should be finishing.